Hello and welcome to my channel. They are what I consider a no-sew body pattern, which means we're going to make the arms first, then we'll start on the legs, work our way up, we'll attach the legs, work on the body, attach the arms, and then work up onto the head. And when we get to the top of the head, I made this one more like the original version. It has a little lip, kind of that the hair sits down inside. And then if you want to try the other way, we'll skip that lip and I'll show you the other way to do the last row before we work on the hair color. And then we will have to sew on the ears, embroider a little nose and a mouth. For this video, I used a number 4 medium weight yarn, a 4.25 millimeter hook, and 14 millimeter safety eyes. And if you want to try it in the plush yarn, I used a number 6 weight yarn, a 5.5 millimeter hook, and then I have some clear 18 millimeter safety eyes, and I just filled in the back with a black marker. And then if you want to add a little gem, I just got these years ago at the dollar store. You just pick up a pack of those, and you'll want to have some kind of a brush, either a little dog brush or a little painter's brush, so you can brush out the hair. This is a crochet along, so I will be doing every stitch with you, and I am also providing a drop down at the top of the screen with the pattern instructions for the first 30 seconds of every row for you to follow along with. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button and click that bell. Not only does that help me out, but you will also be notified every time I load a new video, as well as any likes, shares, and comments are always appreciated. Okay, I think that's everything. So grab your yarn and let's get started. All right, we are going to begin with the arm, and you can start any way you prefer as long as you have the same amount of stitches in row 1. I make a knot with a loop on the end, as if I was making a chain. So I'm going to fold my yarn in half. I'm going to pinch up at the top, grab that loop, wrap it around my finger, down, around, and through to make a little knot. Then I'm going to pinch that loop, and I'm just going to slide my knot up. And I want that loop to be just a little bit bigger than my hook. So it's just going to look like that. And then we're going to insert our hook, grab our yarn, pull through, and chain 1. And remember, that does not count as a stitch. That just attaches our yarn to our loop. And for row 1, we're going to do 8 single crochets into the loop around and over the tail. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you're going to pull that tail if you need to close up that hole. Grab a stitch marker if you're using one. And for row 2, we are going to do 8 single crochets all the way around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Row 3, we're going to do 8 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Row 4, we are going to do 2 single crochets, 1 decrease, repeat that around for a total of 6. So 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, and a decrease for 3. And then repeat that around. 4, 5, and a decrease for 6. Row 5, we are going to do 6 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Row 6, we are going to do 6 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Row 7, we are going to do 6 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Row 8, we are going to do 6 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to take our stitch marker out, grab some stuffing. You're not going to need very much stuffing. We're just going to stuff the front of the hand. So I like to take enough for both and just kind of see that they're the same. I'll put one to the side for the second arm. And then we're just going to put a little bit down into the hand. I like to use a pair of scissors. A great tip I got from one of my viewers. And I'm just going to kind of round out that bottom part there of the hand, and then I'm going to leave the rest unstuffed so that when we attach it to the body, instead of it sticking straight out, it'll kind of come down a little bit and hang along the body. And now we're going to reinsert our hook. We want to have 3 single crochets across, but we only have 2 stitches, so we're going to go into the next stitch, and then we're going to go through the other side in the back through that stitch. So it's going to look like this. We're going to do 1 single crochet, and then we're going to do an increase in the second one. So an increase for 2 and 3. And then we're going to tie that off. Leave yourself a little bit of a tail. Even though we're not sewing these on, I do something with the ends to help secure the arms. Now, if you have just finished your first arm, I'll be putting a screenshot over in the next frame with a timestamp so you can go back and do your second arm. And if you've finished your second arm, just keep on watching and we'll continue on to the next part. All right, now we're going to do the legs, and again, you can begin any way you prefer as long as you have the same amount of stitches in row 1. I'll be doing the knot with the loop on the end. Whoops, like I was making a chain. Insert my hook, grab my yarn, pull up, and chain 1. And remember, that does not count as a stitch. That just attaches our yarn to our loop. And for row 1, going over top of the tail, we're going to do 8 single crochets into the loop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then pull that tail if you need to close up that hole. Grab a stitch marker if you're using one. And for row 2, we are going to do 1 single crochet, 1 increase. Repeat that all the way around for a total of 12. So single crochet for 1, increase for 2 and 3, and repeat that around. 4, increase, 5 and 6, 7, increase, 8 and 9, 10, and our last increase, 11 and 12. Our next row, we're going to do the toes, and there's going to be what I call a double crochet cluster of 4. So we're going to start in the first stitch. We're going to yarn over. We're going to go into that first stitch, grab our yarn, pull up, grab our yarn, and go through the first 2 loops on the hook only, leaving 2 loops on the hook. So that's 1. Do that again, yarn over into the same stitch, grab your yarn and pull up, grab your yarn, and then go through the first 2 loops on the hook only, leaving 3 loops. So that's 2. Yarn over in that same stitch, grab your yarn and pull up, grab your yarn and go through those first 2 loops on your hook, and that'll leave 4. So we've done that 3 times now. Yarn over in that same stitch, grab your yarn and pull up, grab your yarn, pull through the first 2 loops on your hook, so that leaves 5 loops. And now we've done 4, so we're going to grab our yarn and we're going to go through all 5 loops on our hook. You may need to give that a tug, and you may need to push the toe out to the front. So that's 1 toe, 1 double crochet cluster of 4, and then we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next stitch. So that is our pattern for our toes, and we're going to repeat that again. So double crochet cluster of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go through all those loops. Pull it if you need to, and a single crochet. So we've got 2 toes, we need 1 more, yarn over, double crochet cluster of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then grab your yarn and go through all 5 loops on your hook. Pull it tight if you need to, push it out, and 1 single crochet in the next stitch. So there's our 3 toes, and now we're going to do 6 single crochets to finish off the row. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for a total of 12 stitches. Now remember, this is the bottom of our foot. This is going to be the top of our foot, and we're going to be going in these stitches on top of the toes in our next row. So row 4, we're going to start with 3 decreases. So make sure you're going in the next stitch, so before the toe, and then after the toe, and then finish off your decrease. So that's 1, decrease again, that's 2, decrease again, that's 3. So we got 3 decreases, and then we're going to do 6 single crochets for a total of 9 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Row 5, we are going to do 9 single crochets all the way around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Row 6, we're going to do 9 single crochets all the way around. Make sure you're always starting in the first stitch and not skipping one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it should be looking like this now. Row 7, we are going to do 2 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that around for a total of 12. So 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, and an increase, 3 and 4. And then repeat that around. 5, 6, increase, 7 and 8. Repeat that around. 9, 10, and our last increase, 11 and 12. And then if this is your first foot, we are going to do a slip stitch into the next stitch, and then we're going to tie that off. And this is for your first leg only. Leave yourself a bit of a string because we are going to have to tie the little hole that's left when we sewed the legs together. There'll be a little hole there, and I did try and make a little bum, and I used this same string as well, so leave quite a bit there. And take your stitch marker out, and I'm just gonna let this hang down into the bottom. And if you're on your second leg, don't cut your string because we'll be using that yarn to keep on working to attach the legs. So if you've finished your first leg, I will be putting a screenshot over in the next frame with a timestamp so you can go back and do your second leg. And then when you're finished your second leg, just keep on watching and I'll meet you back here so we can put the 2 legs together. Okay, you should have both your legs done now. And we want to be working on the back side because we want our stitch markers to run up the back. So to do that, when we go to join our second leg, we want to be over here behind our last increase. So we've got an increase, single crochet, increase, increase, and we want to be right there, which will put us right on the side of the leg. Otherwise our toes will face a funny direction. So we're going to start by doing 12 single crochets around this first leg that you did. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make sure you go over your slip stitch and down underneath. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And don't worry about this hole that we are going to have here. When we switch over to the other side, we'll fix that later. So now in the second leg that we made, we're going to do 12 single crochets across, starting right after our last stitch. So there's our last stitch. So we're going to be starting in this stitch right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and that should be the last stitch in our leg. So they will look like this. This is the back, this is the front. Let's get our stitch marker back in here so we can keep track. Whoop. Row 9, we are going to do 3 single crochets, 1 increase. Repeat that all the way around for a total of 30. And again, make sure you're starting in the next stitch. So that was our last stitch. So this is our next stitch right here. Whoop. 1, 2, 3, and an increase, 4 and 5. And then repeat that pattern all the way around. 6, 7, whoops, still 7, 8, and an increase, 9 and 10. Repeat that again. Should have left this somewhere. Actually, if your string is in the way from your tie off, I don't know that I left it on the outside. You can just take your hook and bring it down that hole, and then it'll be out of your way. I think I was on 10, so repeat again. 11, 12, 13, increase, 14 and 15. Repeat that again. 16, 17, 18, increase, 19 and 20. Repeat that again. 21, 22, 23, increase, 24 and 25. This should be our last set. 26, 27, 28, and an increase, 29 and 30. And if for some reason you did not get 30 stitches and you maybe went in the wrong spot on your previous row, in your next row, just fix it by adding an increase or a decrease when you get to the end. For row 10, we are going to do 30 single crochets all the way around. And if you need to adjust for 30, you'll do that in the last stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Row 11, 30 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Row 12, 30 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Row 13, 30 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Row 14, we are going to do 3 single crochets, 1 decrease, repeat that all the way around for a total of 24. 1, 2, 3, and a decrease for 4. And repeat that around. 5, 6, 7, and a decrease for 8, 9, 10, 11, and a decrease for 12, 13, 14, 15, and a decrease for 16, 17, 18, 19, and a decrease for 20, 21, 22, 23, and a decrease for 24. Row 15, we are going to do 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Row 16, we are going to do 2 single crochets, 1 decrease, repeat that all the way around for a total of 18. 1, 2, decrease for 3, and repeat that around. 4, 5, decrease for 6, 7, 8, decrease, sorry, for 9, 10, 11, decrease for 12, 13, 14, decrease for 15, 16, 17, and our last decrease for 18. Row 17, we are going to do 18 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. All right, next row we're going to do our arms, so grab those and get those ready. Row 18, we are going to start with 5 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you should be just kind of right even here, these 3 stitches with the side. Grab your first arm, and remembering that your back is the side where we started. This is our front up here. We want to make sure that our strings are facing the front, and we're going to do 3 single crochets through the arm and through the body. So into the arm, then into the next stitch of the body. That's 1. Whoops. Into the arm, into the next stitch of the body. That's 2. Into the arm, and into the next stitch of the body. That's 3. Sorry if my hands were in the way there. I wasn't really watching. And then we are going to do 6 single crochets across, and make sure you are in the next stitch and not the same stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now grab your other arm, and again you want your strings facing the front of the body. Both your strings will be on the front side, and we're going to do 3 single crochets through the arm and the next stitch of the body. 1 through the arm, the next stitch of the body. That's 2 through the arm and the next stitch of the body. And then we should have 1 single crochet left to finish off the row for a total of 18. Row 19, we are going to do 18 increases for a total of 36. So increase 1 and 2, increase 3 and 4, increase 5 and 6, increase, 7 and 8, increase, 9 and 10, increase, 11 and 12, increase, 13 and 14, increase, 15 and 16. And when you get around to where your strings are hanging out, make sure you keep them on the outside because that's where we'll need them for later. Increase, 17 and 18, increase, 19 and 20, increase, 21 and 22, increase, 23 and 24, increase, 25 and 26, increase, 27 and 28, increase, 29 and 30, increase, 31 and 32, increase, 33 and 34, and our last increase, 35 and 36. I'm not going to be stuffing mine for a bit yet, but if you struggle with stuffing down inside, or if you're doing the plush one, you might want to be stuffing as you go. All right, row 20, we are going to do a 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Row 21, 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Row 22, 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Row 23, 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Row 24, 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Row 25, 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. All right, for our next row, you're going to do one of 2 rows. If you're following along with me, you're going to be making this little lip all the way around in the front loops. And then if you want to do just the regular single crochets around for this look, you're just going to do another row of 36 single crochets. And if you've never done the front loops before, instead of going regularly underneath both sides of that V's when you do your single crochet, you're going to come up, catch that front piece of the V, and do your single crochet in there. And it's very important because when we do our next row, we're going to need these back loops for when we start the hair color. Okay, so for row 26, if you're doing like the purple one, 36 single crochets all the way around. And then if you're doing like the pink one, we're going to start off with 17 single crochets in the front loops. So remember, you're going to come down, up in between those V's, catching that front loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if you just want to take a double check and look, when you flip that down, you should see this little ridge of back loops showing up. So that was 5. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And now, staying in the front loops, we're going to do a half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, go into that front loop, grab our yarn, pull up. We'll have 3 loops on our hook. Grab our yarn, go through all 3 loops. So that's your half double crochet. The next stitch, we're going to do a double crochet. So yarn over into that front loop, grab your yarn and pull up. Grab your yarn, go through the first 2 loops. Grab your yarn again and go through the last 2 loops. So there's a double crochet. Now we're going to do a double crochet in the next stitch. Oh, I can't twist. And then a half double crochet in the next front loop stitch. And then we are going to do 3 single crochets. Again, stay in the front loops. 1, 2, 3, and now we're going to repeat what we did here. So a half double crochet in the front loop, a double crochet in the next front loop, a double crochet in the next front loop, and a half double crochet in the next front loop. So it should look like this. And then we are going to do 8 single crochets to finish, all in the front loop still. 1, 2, whoops, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I'm going to just slip stitch into the next stitch to finish this off. If you did the row the other way, you can tie off right now, and because we're going to insert or attach our new color on the next row. So you can either just do a color change now, or you can tie off and reattach your yarn in the next row. So I'm just going to leave a little bit of a tail for weaving in. I might actually just put that in right now. We're going to do a couple of things. We're going to add the eyes. We're going to add some stuffing. So I'm just going to go down kind of into the next stitch, catch a couple of stitches, and then come out in the back. You can tie this or weave it in. I don't know if you need to. I might just give mine a little tie. It'll be on the inside so you won't see it. So it doesn't have to be pretty. So just something like that. And then let's, I think, well, yeah, let's add the eyes first. So get those ready. And if you did this way, it's going to be really easy because we're just going to go 1 row down and we're going to go in between our double crochets. So we got our singles our halves, and our doubles, and we're just going to go one row down. If you, I'm just going to mark that one. If you did the other way, you want to find the center, and you want to go about 4 holes either side of your center. Let's see. So I'm going to be, so there's my 2 double crochets. We got our singles, our halves, our doubles. That's the row they were in right there, and I'm just going to go 1 row down, and that's where my other eye is going to be. So if you are doing it the other way, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 holes in between the eye holes. So I'm just going to put my eye in there. So it should look like that. So I am in this row right here. So 1 row, 2 rows, and in between rows 2 and 3. And then let's put our backs on. Then we'll add some stuffing next, so get that ready. And so if you haven't stuffed the legs yet, what I do is I go a little bit at a time. That even might be a bit too much, just to kind of get the toes. So you want to get down and around into the toes. So I'm holding it flat like this, scooping my finger down in there, and then in my next bunch, I want to fill out the heel. I don't know what's the best angle here. Try that. So we want to try and get the foot flat, and then I'm going to do the other foot before I go up the leg. So just little bits at a time. Down into those toes, using the palm of your hand to keep it flat, and then into the heel. So you want this to be fairly firm, but you don't want to spread your stitches. I did spread, like mine are a little spready around where I did my decreases there. Another tip I learned while we're doing this is getting colored stuffing. So if I had a light brown stuffing, you could probably dye it yourself if you wanted to. I haven't tried it. I do have dye for it, but I haven't tried it yet. Where I got that tip from was somebody said, now Halloween's coming right now while I'm making this. If you look around in your little stores where they sell your Halloween decorations, if you could probably find purple and green and orange, maybe black, kind of like the spider webby stuff. I think that's a great tip if you got a lot of Halloween stuff coming up. Because there are definitely times where you overstuff a little. And then I guess we might as well do the ears now too. Alright, for the ears, you can start again any way you prefer, but make sure you leave yourself a bit of a tail to start, because we're just going to be tying these on. I'll be making my knot with the loop on the end, just a little bit bigger than my hook. Insert my hook, grab my yarn, pull up, and chain one. Remembering that does not count as a stitch, that just attaches our yarn to our loop. And for row 1, we're just going to do 6 single crochets into this loop, but we don't want to go over the tail this time. We want it to stay on that side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, pull it a little bit, and then tie off, leaving again a fair amount of tail to attach it. We might as well do both ears at once here, so just do the same thing over, leave a bit of a tail, however you prefer to start. I'll be making my knot with the loop on the end. Insert your hook, grab your yarn, pull up, chain 1, and then do your 6 single crochets and don't go over your tail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, give it a bit of a pull and tie off, leaving a tail on the other side. And this is going to be really simple, but let's put a pin in just in case. So I'm just going to go into the same row that I inserted my eyes. So we got our top row, another row, so this is row 2, so just between rows 2 and 3, and we're just going to count over 5 holes from this eye. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and same thing on the other side. Down 2 rows, so you're between rows 2 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you're in that 5th hole. All right, so let's just grab one of our ears, and you want to make sure you have the fronts of both sides facing, so whether it's this side or this side, pick your front, and then you want the top string on the front side. And all you're going to do is go into that same hole where your pin is, and you're just going to go around a stitch. So just like that. Then you're going to go in the very first stitch of your ear. You're going to go down a row and around the next stitch, through the middle of the ear. And then you're going to go down a row again and around the stitch. Pull it nice and tight, and then you're going to go through the last stitch of the ear. And then you're just going to give them a tie. So you got your tail end that you were sewing on with, and then your other tail end of your ear. Put them both in the needle, and then just out into the inside there, nice and close to their ear. And then you're just going to do the exact same thing on the other side, so make sure you have your front facing you and you got your top string threaded on your needle. And again, you're going to go right in that hole where your pin is, and you're going around the stitch. Through the first stitch of the ear. Then you're going to go down a row. This is tricky to show without it stuffed, I guess. So you're going down one row and around the next stitch. Through the hole in the ear. And you're going to go down a row again and around the stitch. Into the last stitch of the ear. And then just tie the two tails together. Nice and tight. You can do it more than once if you need to. Thread those ends back on. And then into the head. Nice and close to the ear somewhere where you made your knot. Now you can tie these again together if you want. I'm not going to. I'm just going to stuff them in the bottom of the head. Alright, now we're going to attach our hair color. So I'm just going to make a knot with a loop on the end like I start all my little guys. You can attach it any way you prefer. Now remember, if you did the little lip around, you're going to be going in the back loops, and then if you just did the regular one like the little purple guy, you're just going to go in like normal. Or if you did a color change, you're just going to go to the next stitch. Alright, so we're going to insert in our first back loop, and then we're going to attach our yarn, pull that through, and we're going to chain 1. Now remember, this does not count as a stitch. Okay, don't forget, you're only going in the back loops if you made this little lip. And for row 27, we're going to do 4 single crochets, 1 decrease, repeat that all the way around for a total of 30. So starting in that same stitch you attached, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a decrease for 5. Repeat that, 6, 7, 8, 9, and a decrease for 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and a decrease for 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and a decrease for 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and a decrease for 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and our last decrease for 30. And for our next row, don't forget we have that chain 1. You don't want to be going in that. You want to make sure you're going behind your first single crochet or on top of it, however you want to say it. So just in that first V will be your first stitch. So for row 28, we're going to do 3 single crochets, 1 decrease, repeat that all the way around for a total of 24. So 1, 2, 3, and a decrease for 4. And repeat that around. 5, 6, 7, and a decrease for 8, 9, 10, 11, and a decrease for 12, 13, 14, 15, and a decrease for 16, oops, oh, can't twist my hook, 17, 18, 19, and a decrease for 20, 21, 22, 23, and a decrease for 24. Row 29, we are going to do 2 single crochets, 1 decrease. Repeat that all the way around for a total of 18. So 1, 2, and a decrease for 3. And repeat that around. 4, 5, decrease for 6, 7, 8, decrease for 9, 10, 11, decrease for 12, 13, 14, decrease for 15, 16, 17, and our last decrease for 18. You may want to start adding a little bit of stuffing as we're going around. Oh, I lost my stitch marker. We only have 2 rows left. Row 30, we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 decrease. Repeat that all the way around for a total of 12. 1 and a decrease for 2, 3, and a decrease for 4, 5, and a decrease for 6, 7, and a decrease for 8, 9, decrease for 10, 11, and our last decrease for 12. Then I'm just going to add the last of my stuffing. I like to make it kind of go out to the sides a bit. Again, we do want to make it kind of firm, but make sure you're not going into the neck too much. Maybe a little bit more for some height. You don't have to be too fancy or worry about the stitches on this one since we'll be adding hair. around. You're not going to see if you did a messy job or not. You just want to make sure that you got a little bit of firmness here, so when we do bring in the eyes, you kind of get a bit of a poof between the eyes. Okay, when you're happy with the stuffing, get your hook back in, and we're just going to do, for row 31, 6 decreases. So 1 decrease, 2 decreases, darn stitch marker, 3 decreases, 4 decreases, 5 decreases. Oops, I caught stuffing. You don't want to do that. So we're still on 5. And 6 decreases. And then we're going to just slip stitch into the next stitch and tie off, leaving yourself a little bit of a tail to sew that on, or sew that closed. Now you can take your stitch marker out if you want. If you want to keep it in so you can keep track of your rows for doing your hair, you can do that. I'm going to keep mine in this time. Grab your darning needle. And you're just going to weave in and out of these top loops all the way around. If you are using the plush yarn and it tends to break on you, try doing halfway around, then pulling it, and then finishing off the other half. So I'm just going in and out of these top loops. Never know. Sometimes I do 5, sometimes I do 6. And then I'm going to leave a bit of a hole here. I'm not going to tie it too tight, because then I know that's where my starting round is when I put my hair on under my stitches. Sometimes it's hard to tell which one is the actual closing hole. So I'm just going to give that a tie now. And then just hide that inside somewhere. I also just realized leaving the stitch marker in the center would do the same thing. Okay. Let's work on his face and his arms. So let's do the arm strings first. So you're just going to thread one of the arm tails on. It doesn't matter which one because they're done exactly the same way. And you're going to find the last stitch where it was attached. So right here. And you're just going to go in that hole and out the back center of the neck somewhere. Did I just go around the arm? I think so. There we go. And take your other string and you're going to do the same thing. Find the last place where you stitch that arm on. You're going to go in that hole, out the back center where your other one came out. Now you want to keep track of your strings here this time. We're going to give them one tie. So just like that. Wrap the strings around the neck, turn them around, and now you're going to pull these strings and it's going to bring the arms in and kind of forward a bit. My yarn is kind of a cheap Red Heart Comfort. I'm not sure why. Sometimes it's hit and miss. Usually it's great, but I have to be very gentle pulling this or it's going to snap. So just be very careful. Also, if you're using the plush yarn. Then once you have them where you want them, you'll just give that another tie or two. Thread that on. And then just hide the end out the back somewhere. Now save these ends because you might be able to use them for shaping the face or making the nose. And then, oh, this is why I always take my stitch marker out. Let's get him out of the way there. Now you have your tail that you left when you attached your two legs. If it happened to end up on the inside, just kind of dig around with your hook and fish it out. Rethread that end on. And all you're going to do to close up this hole is just kind of weave back and forth. So I want to make sure I'm catching this top side here. Then I'm going to go over to the other side. And I'm just going to go back and forth, catching each stitch on each side. So let's go back to this side. You can do this a lot of different ways. This is just the way I'm doing it today. Just wrapping it around and around. If you get a big hole like this, instead of pulling it, there's a big stitch there, you can come like catch a bit of the stitch beside it. Go over. And I might do that on the other side too. Just catch one of these stitches up here. It's stuffed really good. Just keep pulling it till you have all the holes closed and you can't see any more stuffing. So I'm going to do another one here. Well, that's good enough, I think. And I just want to go back a bit just because I'm making a bum on this one. You know what? I'm just taking that out. Okay. So make sure you're in the center here between the legs. I need to go over one more stitch. Now, I've never made a bum before on one of these guys, so I'm just guessing how it's done. But all I'm going to do is I'm down in the center between the legs on the back. And I'm just going to go about halfway or maybe 2/3 up the back. Go into a stitch. And then I'm going to come back out in the bottom, in the center somewhere, making sure I'm catching some stuffing. My hook would, or my needle would cooperate. There we go. So I'm actually in the same stitch that I started in. So we got our line up the back side, and I'm just going to give it a pull. To me, it gives more of a dent at top than it does actually cheeks, but then I'm just going to go around one more time and come out the center again between the legs. It shouldn't be this hard for you, but I got some weird stuffing again. Okay. And then once you have your two rounds there, I don't know, you can just tie it down there somewhere. and then hide the end inside. Make sure you're staying at the bottom between the legs so you're not seeing all these spots where you're tying and stuff. Then we'll cut that end. All right, now we're going to kind of shape the face a little bit by bringing the eyes together. So I'm just grabbing one of my arm string ends. Excuse me. And we're going to just thread that on. And what we're going to do is we're going to come somewhere in the center between the eyes. We're going to come up as underneath of the eyes you can get. So I'm in that same row we inserted the eyes. I'm going to wrap that string around the eye if I can. You might have to lift it. Make sure you leave enough room on this side for tying. So wrap that around the eye, and then you're going to come into the stitch below. So we went in that stitch, and we're going to go in the stitch one row down. And we're going to match that over on the other side. So we're in that stitch that's at about a 45-degree angle, just under the eye. So it's going to look like this. We're going to wrap our string around the other eye. And then we're going to go down in the same row that we started in, as close to under the eye as you can get, and then come out where you started. Sorry, my hands are in the way there for a second. And now we're going to give it one tie. And we're going to pull our string and push the eyes in and down. If you wanted to make them a little more cheeky, you could have went down around a stitch down here and then up and around the eyes. But his little head's so tiny, I didn't think we needed it. So this is where I think I broke my thread. So once you have it pulled how you want it, you give it another tie or two and then hide those ends on the inside. And then just in the same stitch and out the back somewhere. Pull that nice and tight, and then you may have to fix a little hole here where you tied your knot. Just use your needle to smush the stitches around a bit. And now I'm going to take the end of my extra tail for when I fix up the hole between the legs, because it's plenty long. You can also just use a scrap. And now we're going to make the nose. So for the nose, we're going to go 2 rows down from where we inserted the eyes. So we inserted the eyes right here. So 1, 2. And I wanted mine to be about 4 stitches wide. So I've got 2 holes. 2 or 3 holes, depending on how your eyes are sitting right now. So if I think this is the center, 1, 2, 1, 2. So mine might be 5 holes wide here. I'm going to come over on the one side, or I can make it 1. Let's do 1. This is my center stitch, so since I'm right beside it, I want to be right beside it on this side, or my nose will be crooked. So this is going to be a little nose. Make sure you have lots of thread on the other side for tying. And we're just going to go around those stitches. I don't know if I mentioned it and I just did it, but I inserted my yarn down below for tying. And then we're going to go around and around, probably, I probably go about, let's say a max of 6, probably about 5 or 6 times. So this is 3, 4, this will be 5. I might stick to 5 here. So now I'm just going to come out where I started. So I can tie it off. Be careful not to pull too hard because you don't want to smush your nose down. And then we're just going to lightly tie that. Oh, I pulled it a little bit. Rethread those ends on. And then we'll hide them out somewhere. Again, be careful not to pull too hard here. You don't want to pull your nose. So once I get it through, I'm just going to go on the other side and gently pull that end out. I'm not going to pull when I cut, so I'm just giving a nice gentle cut here. I did pull my nose a little bit, so I'm just going to swoop my needle in there, kind of raise it a bit, fix that hole I just made. And then I have my end sticking out right here. I don't know if you can see it. So I'm just going to take my hook, come along beside, and then swoop that out of the way. Alright, now you're just going to grab a little scrap of black yarn or embroidery thread. But if all you have is yarn, all you're going to do is separate them into 4 strands. So you're just going to take one strand and you're going to peel that off. And then we're just going to thread that on our needle. And we want to have our mouth about 2 rows down from our nose. So this is where we added our nose. So 1, 2. So it's going to be in this row. So I'm just going to go down 1 more row. And I'm going to go over to the corner of my mouth. And I want my corner to be kind of even with the center bottom of the eye. Then I'm going to go over to the other side, match that, so I'm just in the center bottom of the eye. And then I'm just going to come out where I started so that I can tie these ends. And if you don't have enough, just give that a pull. And then we're just going to tie it nice and light. And then thread those ends out somewhere. Kind of pull it gently. You may have to play with your mouth a little bit. Give it a cut. I'm going to swoop those ends away. And then now what I did for the hair, I generously measured from the top to his feet. And remember, this will be folded over the way we attached. So my hairs are going to be about this long. And then just find something that's similar to that length. I ended up using my hand and thumb. So if this was my, how do I hold it here? So if that's my end wrapped around, it was pretty close. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you'll cut it. I did about 90 to begin with, and then I just kind of did little batches at a time after that. You're going to need, I'm sure, over 100 and some. Then you'll just cut that in the middle, and then you have your little strands of hairs. So that is a little more than it's better to do longer than shorter. You can always cut it if you need to. And then this is the part that is going to take forever, but is so worth it. So we're going to fold our yarn in half and take our hook. And I used a smaller hook, but I don't have it up here with me right now. So I'm just going to do this. And what you're going to do is you're going to go around and around and around every stitch, including when you get to here. You want to go around this last row. So find your center. And if you have a hard time finding, just start going like this around. Am I going the right way? Until you get to the top. So you're going to insert your hook in one of your top stitches. Pull that through. So it's going to look like this. Then you're going to grab these ends with your hook, pull them through the loop you just made, and then you're going to tie or pull that so it ties nice and tight. When I didn't care which way I went in up here, but when I did the bottom row, I went this way just to make this brushing easier so I didn't undo my stitches as I went. Well, let's do one more down here. So make sure, no matter which way you're going, that the bottom row you go from the body up towards the hair. So I inserted my hook, pulled that through, pulled it through the loop, and then out. Pull it tight. And that won't come undone when you're brushing it. Actually looks pretty cute just like this, but it won't stand up. So step 2, you're going to take all your strands of yarn that you have added, and you're going to take your needle or something similar, and you're just going to separate every strand into 4. I mean, I'm assuming all number 4 yarns have 4 strands, but however it works out, excuse me. And of course you can again stop at this stage, but it won't stand up as good. And then once you're done splitting all your yarns, you're going to take your brush, and I just did little sections at a time. I started with like 2 rows this wide here, and then I went up another 2 rows, another 2 rows. But you're just going to take this and you're going to brush those out. It's hard to show like this. Be careful. These brushes are very pokey. This isn't how I did it, but this is how I'll do it on camera. If you can have something underneath while you're brushing, and you're going to lose a lot of your hair. So look at the difference between my strand and what I brushed out. And don't forget to add your little gem at the end. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button and click that bell. Not only does that help me out, but you will also be notified every time I load a new video, as well as any likes, shares, and comments are always appreciated. I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who has been so kind to have hit the thanks button and sent me such generous donations. You will now be listed at the end of all my next videos as my super thanks friends. Also, don't forget, you can always visit my channel to see anything that's here in the background, plus a whole lot more. Take care, be safe, and happy crocheting.